We've got time for literally 2 questions. And panellists, can I ask that you just, one of you respond to the question as opposed to everyone, because we won't have time for that. If you've got a question, pop your hand up, and please don't start talking until the microphone is with you.
You're not taking one from Doreen.
She's going to ask hard questions. Go, Doreen.
Hi. This is fantastic. I'm going to actually twist the conversation around a little bit and actually say the fact that I want to hear in Australia what's the appetite for risk for the investors. Because the reality is for this space, no matter how you cut it, there are flavors of basically the whole notion of venture capital. It is. And the reality is, if you're going to actually get funding and give funding as a venture capitalist, you have to have a big appetite for risk.
That's true.
And in this space, especially, I think it's hard to be an entrepreneur. It's even harder to be a social entrepreneur. So the whole role of passion is extremely important. So I think just for everyone who's also investing, just looking at the business, but really saying, is this person going to see it through, right? If things go hard, if they're going to see it through. So I think it's absolutely fascinating to hear about sort of the traditionally how we're looking at risk, but the reality is, as an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, I would think the last resort is going to a bank, to be very honest. I think the reality is you want to try to get the money from venture capitalists. So I want to hear, as a venture capitalist, anyone in the panel, if they have any comments, how much risk you are willing to take, because the reality is you should be taking a lot of risk, and you should be investing in a lot of things and diversifying your portfolio, right? So,
great question.
So probably from both a philanthropic trust and PAF side, but also as a private equity investor, venture capital type space, I guess for us, in reality, we don't like taking risk, but we take a different kind of risk. And I think when I talk about that kind of fear and danger piece, what we do is put a lot of effort and a lot of time into making sure that we can not so much quantify it, but put in place the right measures that the risk is managed. So from my perspective, I don't think we actually take on much more risk, but everyone else does. That every entrepreneur doesn't think they're really taking any risk. And I think from a venture capital perspective, there are a lot of players who are prepared to take that early stage, higher risk bit. But you do need to put the right levels of control in place, which is there a good business model? Is the team got the capacity to actually deliver? And where's the governance? And they're kind of simple questions, but with those in place, we make investments all the time in that quite high risk space. The problem for me is, particularly in this sector, there's much more a sense of not putting those things in place before asking for investment. So we get lots of requests, the 100 that you've got to go through very quickly and work out who's potentially got a business model, who potentially has got a team, and who potentially will have the capacity to have a good governance structure. If they came more often up front, we would make more investments more quickly.
One more question.
Can I just really quickly, we were just involved in a social benefit bond, quite a small amount, but the investor soundings that we did led us to tranche the investment. And I'm sure that's a very common model, but tranched investment, tranche A, capital guaranteed, small sub-equity return, but a return. Next one, capital guarantee, no coupon. Third one was capital at risk. And that was the way we met the varying levels of investor appetite.
Doreen, I will say, I think the other thing is matching the right investor at the right stage for the right business. We're not quite good at doing that yet. So we have early stage social enterprises turning up to the bank and wondering why they won't loan. Or even sometimes much later stage turning up to philanthropic funds saying they need debt when actually they'd be better at the bank. So we've got some education to do in that process too.
And what people want to do, and that happens in the private equity markets all the time. If I'm an ideas person, I don't go to a venture capitalist to get funding, they'll throw me out the door, but I'll go to an angel investor group that will us in the sector about, hey, I'm not the right one, but let me make an introduction for you to this person or this mentoring program or, this underwriting of it. And I have one quick question for Westpac. Do you have an amount of capital that you plan to invest into this sector?
There's been amounts mentioned, and it was in the billions. A lot of which was already allocated. So I don't think that there's an amount of money that's been put out there. We will go through the usual disciplines. If we don't spend it all, it won't be a major issue. But if there are legitimate opportunities that meet all of our sort of strategic and operational constructs, we will go beyond it.
And sorry, could I have one last question to Westpac? Thank you. Are you at all thinking about creating some products for this sector that are regular banking products, i.e. low, interest-bearing accounts, having people manage their cash flow better in a social enterprise, and perhaps extending out then some products like overdrafts? So what I find in our organisation is you're banking with one organisation and then you go to Westpac for loans, but we could probably benefit more. We don't manage, my experience with some small enterprises, they don't manage their cash they do have very well in a banking and transactional sense.
I think, to be quite honest, I haven't got the detail of that. I know that we do lots of products to meet lots of different needs, and this is one. We do lots of financial literacy programs, early stage banking, particularly in the Pacific. Sandy, are you aware of anything?
Yeah, the social sector banking has a pretty broad suite, and you'll find that a couple of the banks have social sector banking expertise now, but that's a new thing for some, and others have been doing it for a bit longer, so the banks are recognising the need to tailor-make with feedback from social sector customers what that looks like. So that's improving as far as the bank's concerned, and Westpac's had that for quite some time. Let's do one last quick question. Yeah, there.
A lot of what you're getting to, and Paul, your presentation in particular was bordering on brilliant, but a lot of what you're getting to is about better identification of risk and management of risk, and a lot of that is project management. And what strikes me is in this whole offering over the last 2 days, there's no sort of project management intelligence or approach, and it can be the vehicle that moves and identifies the risk and gets through in managing best the outcomes. So I'm just wondering, has there been any thought towards that?
I think you probably heard, and I remember when the CEDA funds were up yesterday, that mention of capacity building is one of the really key things that are missing. And it's not just capacity building to be out of a fantastic business plan to get investment, it's capacity building about executing a business as well. So, for us, because we were struggling to find good investments, we ended up building an incubator for social enterprise, particularly because of that capacity thing. You've got people like social traders who do work in that space, School for Social Entrepreneurs, Celia's here. There's lots of people that are trying to fill some of that gap between the commercial realities of what you need to execute and the wonderful mission that we're doing. And I often get asked the question about, well, is it easier to take a commercial person and put them into the social enterprise space, or is it better to take someone who has this wonderful passion and mission and get them to be commercial? And I have a very strong opinion on that. But at the end of the day, you've got to have both skills. And I do think we've got a real opportunity to do more skills development in both getting to an investment, but then also the project management, as you call it, which I would probably just refer to as business management. And we do have to build more skills in that space. And I think it's a place where investors, philanthropists, government, and even the entrepreneurs themselves could invest more. And we all have a part to play in that, and we all have an opportunity. And the social sector, and particularly the social enterprise sector, shouldn't be different than the commercial sector at that space. We've had years of granting from government and other institutions into commercial industry. Why wouldn't we do it in this industry? I'm infamously known for calling the automotive industry one of the largest not-for-profits because it's had more granting than most of you guys in the room. We decided that that was a good industry to have. We've granted and subsidised to it for decades. Why wouldn't we do it then in other industries as well?